This is James Corbett of the Corbett Report, and it is the 17th of July 2011 here in Japan, and it's still the 16th of July back across the other side of the date line, where I'm joined on the line by Russ Baker, the award-winning journalist behind the highly acclaimed expose of the Bushes, The Family of Secrets, and he is also the founder of the independent investigative journalism website whowhatwhy.com. Mr. Baker, thank you very much for taking the time to talk with us today.
It's my pleasure.
All right, well, I wanted to have you on today to talk about the unfolding scandal related to the News Corporation and obviously Rupert Murdoch. And as I'm sure many listeners and viewers out there are aware, the scandal continues to unfold, with the latest news looking even more grim and dire for Murdoch himself and his son, who is now under the spotlight, or in the crosshairs, so to speak, now that Rebecca Brooks has resigned. So, Mr. Baker, tell us a little bit about, from your perspective, what this scandal is really about and what it reveals about News Corporation.
Well, unfortunately, to my mind, it is not going to reveal the true essence of News Corporation or News Corporation's real influence in shaping governmental policy throughout the world, actually, from the United States to Australia to the UK to even China. That is a much, much bigger story. It's a story that's been out there for a long time, and it's a story that the media have never touched. I wrote a piece about that for the Columbia Journalism Review in 1998. We've just reposted it onto whowhatwhy.com. And it's still very, very relevant. I'm happy to talk about what's going on now. Certainly that's an interesting story, but what I find most ironic is that Murdoch is being caught in a kind of a classic tabloid story of precisely the sort that he exploited in order to build his own empire.
Yes, it is quite interesting how that the tables got turned on him. Well, let's talk a little bit about the founding of the Murdoch Empire and how it came about.
Right. Well, Murdoch's father was himself very successful in newspaper publishing in Australia. And so although Rupert likes to present himself as up from the bootstraps, he began with quite an advantage. But he was very, very clever and very hardworking, and he did cobble together a tremendous empire. He began with newspapers in Australia, and then he began moving to other countries, and then eventually moved past newspapers to magazines, then to television, to movies, book publishing, and at this point, I don't know what the statistics are, but he's certainly one of the most influential figures in shaping public opinion in the world. Whether you're watching movies from 20th Century Fox, or you're reading books from HarperCollins, whether you are supporting particular football teams, rugby leagues, and so forth. He's in everything. And so we don't really even begin to understand his ability to influence the public in terms of how they understand issues, who they vote for, what they think are the kind of pressing matters facing our society. So just there's no way you could overestimate his impact with this empire.
Well, that's right, and certainly he has expanded into numerous different continents around the world, and really has expanded to the point where it seems like the political influence that this one man wields is almost overwhelming. What does that really say about the type of media world that we're living in, that one man can have that much political influence?
Right, and I think that's very true. Certainly in the United States, with the very close presidential elections we had in 2000 and 2004, I think there's no question that without his machine behind George W. Bush, he would have had a real difficulty being elected and being re-elected. If the Fox News channel, for example, hadn't existed, I think he would have really had a problem. So their influence is tremendous, and of course, in recent years, he has hired Karl Rove, the so-called architect of George Bush's political success, as a columnist at the Wall Street Journal, an esteemed business publication that Murdoch bought in the last few years. And in England, Murdoch's support has been absolutely crucial to the prime ministers, and he was very instrumental in making Margaret Thatcher what she was, John Major, and then switching and backing Tony Blair and Labour. And so all of these people, regardless of what party they're in, have found that if you play ball with Rupert Murdoch and you allow him to continue to expand his empire by getting favorable regulatory decisions, you will be rewarded not only with the support that will put you in office, but when you leave, his companies then will give you enormous publishing advances to write books that will never earn out those advances. And so it's a kind of a pretty obvious quid pro quo. You get benefits going in and going out.
That's right, and you cite some examples in that Columbia Journalism Review article that you posted on whowhatwhy.com talking about people related to the Chinese government. So that was particularly enlightening, and I'll direct people in that direction to find out more about that. But again, it raises the question of what can be or what should be done to prevent this type of political clout emerging, or should anything be done to really prevent what we've seen in the creation of this Murdoch news empire?
Well, some years ago, speaking of the United States in particular, we had a much more vigorous effort to ensure that there was a diversity of media ownership. And we also had, for example, the Fairness Doctrine, which required that television stations, in order to obtain licenses and their share of a limited bandwidth, that they would have to do something in the public interest, and so they would have to put on a certain kind of programming, news programming, and so forth. Most of these things have fallen by the wayside. There were rules limiting how many different media outlets one could own in a particular city, and Murdoch has been able to essentially get around a lot of that. And so this is deeply troubling for a democracy. It actually raises questions of whether a democracy can really even exist when one person is able to have that kind of dominance. And so what I think needs to happen is that, and I would hope it would come out of this particular meta scandal, although I have my doubts, would be to simply say the public interest is too important to allow any one individual to own this much. And, there were the days of the trust busting when all kinds of different entities, from oil companies to what have you, were seen as too big to be allowed to exist as such. And I think they've got to take a look at companies like his and question whether this is in the public interest. Of course, it's very difficult because he has these entities all over the world now, and with the way things are, and with the internet and so forth, even if you were to impose limits on him in the United States, it would be pretty easy for the kind of what I think you could really call disinformation in many cases that he's responsible for to still blow back and impact elections here in this country and elsewhere as well.
Well, then finally, what can you tell us about the media coverage of this scandal so far? Obviously, I would imagine Fox News is trying to avoid this as much as possible, but what about the other outlets? How are they handling this unfolding scandal?
They're handling it very carefully. That's the track record that people who work for Murdoch know. They don't need to be told that he expects all of his enterprises to be loyal, not just to him, but to whoever is his preferred flavor of the moment. I do document that extensively in this article we've got up on Who, What, Why. But that we're seeing that right now. So Fox, of course, barely covering this at all. I don't think, the Journal still has some of the good people who worked there before he bought it. I think they're trying to cover it. It's very difficult for them. They're certainly not going to be the most aggressive. But, this scandal is very interesting because since it's about human interest, since it's about bad behavior, spying on the royal family, spying on a 13-year-old girl and families of people who were victims of 9/11 and so forth, there's a sense that there's no way to recover from this because the kind of analysis I'm more interested in, and probably you are, which is about the larger picture of what he does over the years and how he shapes public perceptions, that's too complex and too nuanced a story for most of the media. But this one is easily told, easily understood, easily felt. It's going to be very, very difficult for him to come out of this hole.
I think you're right about that, and we've already seen him commit an act of attrition by writing his mea culpa, his apology, which was published in his papers and directed towards the families of the victims that that his organization was hacking. But I assume that's too little, too late, and that no one's really buying that.
I don't think anyone's buying that, because you simply have to ask yourself. For example, just one of the many revelations coming out in recent days, that his newspaper had people at the Metropolitan Police in London on the payroll. Well, you simply have to ask yourself, well, how did they get paid? I don't suppose reporters were carrying big wads of cash around, spending their own money for this, which means it was coming from corporate coffers. All those things have to be signed off for. They've got to be justified. And I think it's very, very hard for them to claim that what it was that really made the News of the World singular, which was this alleged sort of inside information always on what was happening in people's lives, that was their stock in trade, and that someone like Murdoch or his son James, who ran the international division, were completely unaware of how it was that they were able to obtain that information. That's hard to believe.
It certainly is. Well, a very interesting story, and obviously still unfolding, so we'll have to see how it develops. But I certainly hope that people will check out whowhatwhy.com to find out more about your investigative reporting. Russ Baker, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you very much.